You're listening to Power Athlete Radio, a podcast dedicated to empowering your performance every damn day. Join former NFL pro and Power Athlete founder John Welborn as he dissects the greatest minds in strength, conditioning, and more. Joining him is everyone's favorite coach and hair model, Chris, aka Tex McQuilkin, Power Athlete's Director of Performance. So whether your goal is to be the hammer, destroy mediocrity, or simply move the dirt, you've come to the right place. Now with the warm-up done, let the gains begin.
Hey, Power Athlete Nation. I am John Welborn, founder.
Fucking nerd.
Founder of Power Athlete, also 10-year NFL player, 9-year starter, and all the other good stuff, but also co-host of Power Athlete Radio. And this is our Halloween edition, as you can tell, or maybe you can't
if you're watching on YouTube.
If you're watching on YouTube. I was really trying to go for Revenge of the Nerds, but my Tri-Lam sweater did not show up. So I had to rock this 1970s pink polo that I stole from my dad many years ago. And obviously my glasses, which are like blue blockers where they get lighter and darker.
And but a little boy part down the middle.
I did. I got a little butt a butt cut. Reloaded, but it looked a lot better when my hair was wet. But I've been waiting for you to get your makeup ready so my hair dried.
I know, I'm all dolled up,
dude. You're ready to go. You're looking like Latimer. I'm a little upset that you're not wearing your Latimer jersey.
Oh, I thought you were going to say did steroids.
You're kind of the pre-Latimer before he decided to get on the juice.
Yeah, I'm 3 years special team. It's like midsummer, and I'm realizing I got one more year left in my career.
Well, it's like your Latimer's.
I've never sat at the table.
Well, it's like your Latimer's lesser known roommate, who also paints his face, but we don't see anything about him because he's on special teams.
Yeah, one of those guys, which they don't show those clips in that movie or any other movie because it's a special team, except for the water boy. Special teams, do laps. Shit.
I do like the water boy. I forgot about the water boy when we were talking about favorite football movies the other day. We went with Any Given Sunday and then Revenge of the Nerds, which is my other favorite football movie.
I know you're reaching, and that I think was the recency theory with your costume.
I have rocked some version of the Revenge of the Nerds as many times as I can think of, like for costumes. I've gone as, obviously we're, a Tri-Lam right now, but an Alpha Beta. Ogre was a great one with the ripped off sleeves off of the Letterman's
An Alpha
jacket.
Beta? I just picked up on that.
Yeah, the Tri-Lams and the Alpha Betas and the Omega Moose.
So I got the Latimer face paint. He did multiple games. I felt this is the most appropriate because it's the skull. And what this was not was the spit scene. If you recall that
where
one.
They spit in each other's
Him
mouths.
And Mac. Yeah. Mac.
Standard.
Well, yeah. He went, this is skull, Power Athlete. You know what I did? I meant to hit the lightning bolt, but you rushed me in my makeup room.
We got places to go and people to do.
Yes. Well, we hit a Halloween hotline special on the Instagram, so we got some solid gold questions from the audience.
I'm excited.
All right. Let's lead this one off with some story time.
Oh, I do love telling me a story.
Well, you've been in a lot of weight rooms in your career. You've seen a lot of shit. You've done a lot of shit with some guys that have seen some shit. We can just say that.
Okay.
What are some of the scariest training stories that you've either experienced, seen, or heard about?
Oh, man, I can think of two that were pretty gnarly. One happened to me and another one happened to another guy. Andy Jacobs, who was our linebacker at Cal, real strong, real strong dude. He was a big thumb around guy on the bench press because he felt like he could get his elbows into a better position. And I think he had like 425 on the bar. I was spotting him. And I remember like he had a ton, when you watch, like now when I bench, I'm real big on like lining up the knuckles with the elbows and this, just because when you bench heavy, you got to be extremely technical because if you dump the weight or you're in a bad position, you're going to fuck yourself up. So he's going for a Big Max 425. He had his thumbs wrapped around and had his wrist really torqued this way. And as he brought it down, he kind of had this like weird position where he'd get to a point and then like his humerus head would stop and he would kind of just like bend his elbow back.
Gross.
It was a gnarly bench press. And what happened, all of a sudden he's coming up, wrist does this, he drops it with just one side on his rib, hits his rib cage, and I caught it on the bounce and was able to pull it off of him, broke his rib.
Damn.
And on one side, fucked him up pretty good. If he had dumped both, it would have looked really ugly. About that time, There was a kid at USC who was, I think it was at running back, ended up dumping it, both of them landing on his throat, and never played football again. So I have cautioned people against that thumb under grip as many times as I could. I mean, as soon as I see it, I'm almost at the point where, like, if I'm training with you, you're training a power athlete, or I'm training an athlete. I mean, to the point where, we would teach, bench press at the CrossFit football seminars. When people would do
floor press.
Floor press. When people go to do it, we would stop them, hand around, just do it like this. I want to grab it here, because if a bar dumps, at least I have a thumb to catch, and then I can work on doing it. But we have seen people dump this way, but the thumb will actually push it away a little bit. And usually if your spotter's, pretty keyed in, he can catch it. But that was a pretty gnarly one. Another one happened to me. This was pretty early on. Was wearing wraps, squatting way too heavy, had the belt way too tight. This has kind of taught me a little bit about, like, internal pressure. We went for a max rep set. I think I was trying to do, set of 5, and ended up, we were real big on the one more, give me one more. So I ended up, I think,
Adam Nelson.
Yeah. But we were wearing belts and wraps, which creates a ton of pressure and tension. And I think I was maybe 17, because I remember there's a formal or a prom, some, date picture that I have where my eyes are completely red, because on rep 10, I was holding my breath. I blew all the blood vessels in my eyes. So, like, my eyes are blood red. And I was holding my breath. We were big, like, and I wasn't breathing at the top. I was just holding my breath, one more, sitting in, bouncing off of the wraps, had the belt on real tight, created a ton of internal torque, internal pressure, and I wasn't breathing, and ended up blowing all the blood vessels in my eyes. I, like, got none, and my partners were like, what the fuck? Went home. My face was like, I had broken blood vessels on my nose, all over my eyes. I remember Dave Tate telling me, that's a good squat session when you blow blood vessels in your eyes. And I'm like, no, I probably, maybe did some damage, but something to think about. So those two were two that come to mind immediately.
Yeah, I had a few. None I've experienced in a weight room, but I suppose have taught me some lessons. So I getting paint all over the place.
What's weird is when you have face paint, and I've painted my face for Halloween before, you never realize how much you touch your face until you actually put face paint on, and then you're like, why is this all over my fucking hands?
Yeah, the microphone, computer. I didn't realize how much I put my mouth on the microphone until I had this teeth painted. The first one, my first job, was a corporate wellness gig. As you can imagine, awful. It sucked. The worst part about it, we had to test pressure of all not the Bosu balls. What do you call those? The inflatable curls. We use them for or physio ball curls, inflatable balls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Physio balls?
Yeah. They're called physio balls.
Yeah. And we had to check the pressure of them. So basically, like, you're measuring somebody's waist. And I was like, what the hell? We have to do this every day. This sucks. Well, the company was sued by a patron because they were doing dumbbell bench press on the physio ball, double dumbbell. The ball pops because it was inflated too much, and he falls down and then breaks both forearms. This is some corporate wellness gig, so just a patron, a worker, and sued the company. So then
sued the physio ball company?
Not the physio ball company, the person that had the contract that my
because it
company,
wasn't the proper inflation.
Yeah. So then we had to check it every single day.
Feels pretty cunty.
Yeah. Well, just avoid stupid stuff like that. And there was always a meme going around of people doing barbell back squats on those things about the same time, but just very tedious task that deflated my enthusiasm for that job. See what I did there? The other was...
No, I heard it was awful, but keep going. Don't mind me.
Another, it was at UT during my internship. We had 4 dudes with the same injury of their groin, their bone getting pulled off the pelvis, their groin muscle. So was so intense. And then I saw the reverberation of these 4 receivers going down and how that negatively affected like a junior quarterback in his make or break year. And then the head coach, and it was just this giant ripple effect of performance. And I mean, you could trace it back down to the training program. If it's the same injury, the same...
Yeah, if you have 4 people with the exact same injury, there's a good chance that they're all doing the same training, that the training is to blame, and it's not something freak that happens.
Yeah, so seeing that and how it negatively affected like the junior quarterback, the coach, and all this it was massive. So while I suppose I did have part of it because I was coaching that summer with all those dudes that ended up getting hurt, but it's seeing it, and you develop a relationship with the guys, and then it's just a unfortunate opportunity for a lot of people on the team, especially the seniors, because that's it, and the head coach. But freaking wild. I always affected that. And the other is stories. So back to Georgetown coaching career, where pull-ups, one of the head coaches that I was involved with the sport, pull-ups was not allowed to be in the training program. And as one of our Power Athlete foundational movements, the vertical pull.
Why?
I'm going to get to that. Essentially, so a kid was rocking pull-ups and broke his ankle. Why do we think his feet were crossed? And this was part of the seminar in which we taught just effectively getting the kids set up in a dorsiflex ready position to land.
Sure.
So they broke their ankle during pull-ups. So pull-ups were stricken from the workout cards, not because of the pull-up, but because, a kid was just lost focus for a moment or fatigued. Who knows what happened? But the ankle went down, and so did the pull-up, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big one. We saw a lot of people at the CrossFit football seminar that didn't have good wherewithal. Like if you train in gyms often enough, you see a lot of crazy shit. Actually, this morning, Sam Flaherty is at the gym sending me pictures of some guy who was on top of the pull-up rig trying to do inverted push-ups.
It's awesome.
Like on top of the
rig. You mean horizontal rows?
Yeah, he was on top. But yet what he was doing was he actually, the handles you do pull-ups on, was on top of the rig, basically in a free, a push-up position, but freestanding his leg or his legs,
So he was holding that like a gymnast in the rings.
And trying to do push-ups on top. And she's like, this fucking guy. And I told her, I'm like, shoot video and send it to Instagrammers in the wild. Or influencers in the wild. Do
you even lift? There's a number of pages.
Oh, there's so many. I was like, dude, shoot the video and send it to me. I would love to fucking post this and send this in. Just because if you work at a commercial gym, you're going to see a lot of wild shit. I've seen a lot of people injure themselves just by not understanding etiquette, training, and just improper manners. I think ego gets in the way. Or what happens is people see crazy shit and they think, I'm going to do crazy shit. But do crazy shit in the comfort of your own house where nobody can video you and make fun of you.
I don't think they know it's crazy.
Maybe they're crazy. But the amount of it, here's the one that I continuously see and can't fucking fathom. So when I lift weights, there's always a survivability. There's always a game plan. You got 600, 700, 800 pounds in your back and you're thinking to yourself, if I go sit down with this and I can't stand up, what's my exit plan? Obviously you have spotters. Maybe you're in a rack, whatever it looks like. So the amount of times I've seen dudes come down and actually ditch the bar over their head by their chest goes down and they try to pull their head out. It's the amount of times I've seen it, that's never once even crossed my mind as the escape method for that. If the bar is heavy and I get into a position and it starts to break, I'm going to throw it back and go forward and try to get away from it. Ditching it over the head. Shit, I saw a video the other day on Instagram of a dude ditching 700 pounds. He got to the bottom and ditched it over his head. I the bar ditches it over as he's trying to get out. The bar bounces off and hits him square in the top of the head and drove him straight back. I just don't understand the lack of survival instincts.
Well, even I've seen that with female athletes in ponytails.
Yeah.
And holy smokes, that rolling bar just gets wrapped up in the pulling belt and whips them.
Yeah.
Forward.
Yeah, so there's got to be a need for, if you're going to lift heavy weights, you got to understand how to survive. And ditching a bar overhead like that one, I cannot think of a single time where that's ever. But what happens is the hips come up, the back breaks, and as you're doing this, the bar only has one way to go. So I always feel if I get to the point where the hips start coming up and I can't get the chest back, I just basically dump the hips forward and shoot it back as far as I can.
Have you ever
have spotters?
Also true. Well, we have also witnessed, I think, 400 or 500 pounds get thrown backwards on Mr. Luke Summers.
Oh, dude, at one of our first Occupy Strengths in Naperville, we would always ask people, because we were lifting with bumper plates, hey, if you get stuck, do you want to ditch it or do you want a spotter? And the guy said, hey, I want spotters, which means that if I can't get stuck, they're going to take the weight off. The guy gets stuck, and what does he do? He throws the weight off, and Luke's behind him spotting, and like 400 pounds or 500 pounds landed in the crook of Luke's arm like a dynamic Zercher squat, and he fucking dumped it. Almost killed that fucking dude. And I'm like, dude. And he's like, oh, I forgot there were spotters. I'm like, you fucking called for spotters. Mm-hmm. Pull your fucking head out of your ass.
A Zercher clean.
Yeah, that was gnarly. So at that point, I think at that point, we had no back spotting. And I was like, here's the deal. We're going to do side spots only, no back spotting. And if the guy wants to ditch it, just step the fuck away. I mean, like at that point, I don't want, volunteers and people trying to help. So, man, there's, it's, you go back and forth. If you're going to lift heavy weights, get spotters, know how to lift it. Don't do stupid shit that'll potentially get you killed in a training environment. Yeah, in
a competition environment, I was also thinking, and back to our podcast with Brandon Lilly, and speaking to his injury during competition, and both of his knees giving out under that load. So that was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you ever watched the video, I remember when it happened. It's and to hear Brandon tell the story, he cut a bunch of weight to try to make it. He hadn't been training. He'd been traveling around and wasn't really ready. And they called him and, kind of wanted him to show up and do this lift. And, he ends up getting, blowing both patellar tendons with, 800 pounds on his back. And, thank God he had good spotters. And, but when you go to those powerlifting meets that are legitimate powerlifting meets, not like that hacked fucking Occupy Strength shit we did. But these dudes that are spotting him are all 8,000-9,000 pound squatters, training in groups. I mean, they fucking know how to take the deal. So it was, they definitely saved his life if they hadn't. But I mean, as he unlocks, he blew both of those knees. It was a pretty savage deal.
Yes. Episode 553, Power Athlete Radio, Hypertrophy for the Soul.
Yeah.
Was that one.
So, but yeah, the one where I've seen people really fuck them up is that thumb around. I can't ever think. I mean, I know people bench that way, but just the inherent benefit far outweighs, the danger for it. I mean, the amount of people I've seen break ribs, lose the deal. I mean, Andy Jacobs, shit, broke his rib. I mean, he was, going to be a starter, probably had a chance to play in the NFL. I don't know if that derailed him, but it definitely slowed him down and fucked him up.
Yeah, and just thinking of this right now, one of the first lessons I do teach when introducing the barbell to a high schooler is unloading, how to unload the barbell. Because, if you have more than 90 pounds, so 2 plates on each side, any more than that, if I unload and free fall, that barbell becomes a weapon to the next rack over. Yeah. And that could do some serious freaking damage.
Yeah, normally a good barbell, in a standard size rack, you can take off, 2 plates. So you can go empty at 90, anything more than that. But then it's a little dicey. And if it's a cheaper bar or a smaller rack, but on our racks, you can pull 2 off of them and leave 90 on one side and no balance, but it's never a good idea.
Yeah.
But even the amount of people that I've seen that don't know how to put plates on and off a bar, watching kids try to pull them and get in different positions and end up as they're pulling the plate on, leaving their hands and getting their fingers stuck. I think a big part of training is gym etiquette, knowing how to unload and load stuff, to not doing things stupid, knowing how to spot people. There's definitely some gym etiquette associated with it that I don't know if it's taught as much anymore, just because people are in global gyms and people got on headsets and they're not as apt to kind of go into the situations like I did, going in as a young dude in his Angus's and having to rack weights, just trying to find the etiquette and fit within the group.
Yeah. I'm not really a fan of the loud music in there, so we can hear different things.
Well, everybody's got their headphones on anyway, so why the fuck do they even need to play music?
Well, in a Globo, yeah. I can't tell you the last time I've been in one.
Well, last time I was at Gold's Gym, the music was awful. It was
that's what they're trying to do. They're like, put your headphones on. So we don't want anybody talking to anybody.
Well, I think they have to pay. And I think that it came out because I asked him, I'm like, why is this music so terrible? And the guy said, well, we have to pay for music, so this is the free stuff. So like normally if you like stream music in a gym, you have to pay for a commercial license. So it's kind of like for the business, like if we want to use, like we pay for that service to use canned music that's paid for. And that's where
I'm tracking.
Yeah. So I think that's why the music's so awful, because they have a streaming service and this is what they can commercially play.
Well, I think like our gym, if they just played Spotify and let the commercials go, a lot of people would lose their shit. Just pay for that, dude.
I was so cheap for so long in terms of not playing for Spotify that it actually became kind of like a shtick. And then what happened was, because we pay for all this streaming shit. And then I went on that motorcycle ride with Matt Vincent and we like plugged our phones into the bikes and we stopped somewhere. And all of a sudden, like I'm listening to Spotify, it like stops for the commercials. And Matt and his girl and George Bryan and the people I was with all turn and look at me and they're like,
you cheap
motherfucker. And like just literally.
That's what broke the camel's
back. That's what broke me. It was pretty much a little bit of public shame that they just.
Well, yeah, we shamed you often.
But you guys, I don't value your opinion in any way. But Matt, Bonnie, George Bryant, and dude, they were like, and then Matt even kind of sat down and he was like, "Hey, dude,
intervention."
So, yeah, he's like, I don't do this very often because I try to stay out of people's lives, but just pay for Spotify. It's killing the entire group of the trip to hear your fucking commercials. And I was like, okay.
So if only we knew, we would have told Matt to.
Dude, if Indian Motorcycles flies me to San Francisco, I get on a 8-day ride, and it was actually stopping at a biker joint, and we get off, and all of a sudden it's like, and then from Spotify, and I'm like,
listen to this commercial for 30 minutes free.
Yeah. And they just like all look at me, and they were just like the look of anguish, disgust, shame, like this just was all wrapped up into one. Shame. And I was like, you guys are right, it's time. I've listened to free Spotify for years and finally I'll make an account.
I can just imagine the record scratch.
It was like
the head jerk.
Yeah, it was like somebody farting in church or something. It was just like everything got deathly quiet and just the look of disdain and disgust. And then Matt had to have an intervention at that point. I was like, I'll pay the 99 cents. Because I got 3 months free and it's like, whatever. Like the first year.
And then you're going to cancel?
And then that's Harry Heppenstall. He cancels. And then he sets up a new account and cancels. I'm like, I'm good. I like my playlist.
All right.
Yeah.
Another question?
Yeah, lay it on me.
All right. Well, this could be involved in the Globo Gym. I have a training history on my back. I haven't been training consistently for the past 6 months. How do I best approach training again? Goal is to be strong and as lean as possible.
Well, I think you got to balance your energy output with your expectations. If you've been off training for 6 months, there's a good chance that you've not only lost strength, but strength is if you've built a solid foundation, like on something like bedrock. The strength will come back fairly quickly, assuming you've done the work in the forefront. The issue is going to come back with conditioning. So you have to get your body in shape to be able to train heavy and hard. So if you haven't done anything, I would probably start fairly conservative, 3-4 days a week. Maybe one day on or like an every other day kind of deal, or maybe 2 days on, 1 day off. I'd start prioritizing a little bit of aerobic work, just trying to build a little bit of conditioning into it. Mm-hmm. And I would think start slow, like something like bedrock. Just go back on bedrock, do a basic linear progression, do some aerobic work, try to build a big base, and just be really conservative. The problem is that all of a sudden I haven't been training. People want to go 100 miles an hour. They jump in with both feet. I'm going to train 6 days a week. I'm going to do this and this and this. And then they get hurt. Mm-hmm. So that's where injuries come from. When we get a change in volume or a long layoff, and then all of a sudden, bam, I want to go 100 miles an hour. And then the problem is you're going to get overuse injuries. You're going to get fucked up. So take it slow and realize that it's going to be at least 2 for 1. If you took 6 months off, it's going to at least be 3 months to get you back to where you want to be. So realize that, plan it out, say, you know what, I'm going to go every other day, 2 days on, 1 day off, whatever it looks like. I'm going to do a bunch of aerobic work, make sure that I build that big aerobic base, and then be smart, just maybe a basic linear progression to try to get back and realize it's probably going to take me 6 months.
Yeah.
3 months to get back.
Goal to be strong is a key here. And I think bedrock is the appropriate direction. If it's, say, somebody that's aiming to get into shape, Like if it's new year, new you goals.
New me, new you, new us, new we.
Yeah, then lean enable would be the direction.
Yeah.
And we actually reorganized and took a new approach to lean enable, more of a grindstone model where we got 2 mandatory days, one upper, one lower, still all with a dumbbell, and then some cardio, some strength focus, and a little GPP, Metcon style, some fun stuff in there, all with a dumbbell. So his key term here, goal to get strong and as lean as possible, bedrock, and I imagine leading protocol based off that little goal.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's got to be a constant balancing of expectation. And I think people get a little bit out of whack with that and realize, I mean, if you took 6 months to get out of shape, I mean, we see this all the time. I haven't trained in 10 years and I've been training for 3 weeks. How come I can't see results? And you're like, well, dude, at best it's 2 to 1. If you spent 10 years on the couch, it's going to take you months. I mean, if it took you 60 months to get in shape. So, I mean, it's, it's just balancing. I think everybody thinks that the minute they turn on the faucet, the hot water is going to come, and it just doesn't. And especially as you get older, maybe in your 20s and you've done a ton of training, you take some time off. I mean, I had a conversation with my daughter about this. She's got to take a couple weeks off from jiu-jitsu, and she's like, I'm going to be so far behind. I'm like, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, let's say you do this for 10 years. What's a few weeks? And especially, I'm like, you're so new in this deal that maybe just going and watching and just visually participating, pays dividends. And then her coach gave her like a book on, from Saulo Ribeiro, wrote this book on University Jiu-Jitsu. So she was going through it last night. But I think if you can balance the expectation and realize that, if it's a 2 to 1, if it took me 6 months, it might take me 3. And then at least then you give yourself an accurate timetable. And if it happens faster, it happens faster, which would be great. But if it doesn't, then you know what? You're better than doing nothing. So where I get worried is when people take long breaks and they start training and it doesn't come back right away, and then they quit because they're like, oh, I'm never going to get back in shape. And then you realize, like, you want to be lean and strong, but at the end of the day, training and exercise is more about seeing body fat, and is more about, being strong is obviously the power, is the platform on which we build life. But, think about gray space, think about brain, think about health, all these other factors that contribute within training. So, I have a deal where I just try never to let myself get out of shape, and that's
the Ed Wellborn.
Yeah, that is my brother, which is wild because my brother ruptured his patellar tendon playing basketball a little over a year ago, so he has to try to get back in shape. And it's funny, we talked the other night, and he's been back to running, and it's been like 13, 14 months, and he constantly always says to me, "Dude, I can't believe you had the same injury and went back and started 16 games in the NFL a year later." He's like, it took me over a year to be able to go run again. And he goes, the fact that, almost a year to the day you went out and started, he goes, I had no concept of it. I'm like, yeah, it was fucking a lot of work. A lot of work goes into it. It also helps to be 23, 24 years old, not 50 years old. There's definitely something with age and elasticity and health and muscle as we age, but being young is your greatest ally in this stuff.
Yes. Well, speaking of being young and stupid, how do you go about convincing a newbie to give a power athlete training program a shot when they're used to bro sciencing their way through the gym?
You said young and stupid, and I saw a funny quote the other day that said, if you're not young and stupid, or if you're not stupid when you're young, what are you going to talk about when you get older? And so I was like, oh, I guess that allows us to be young and stupid when we're young. I don't know how to fucking hack into bro science people because, there's so much fucking nonsense. I think the realistic deal is being able to provide a framework that allow people to work. I think with a lot of the bro science, because it changes so quickly, and there's all these kind of things that people have inherently start believing within gyms. My favorite is, I get hit all the time, like, how much BCCA should I take? If you're eating a high protein diet, 0. Do you want to take them? Sure. If you like the taste and you want them in your water, go do them. But at the end of the day, they're only really going to pay dividends if you're if you're low on protein. If you're eating a high protein diet, it's just like kind of pouring water into Niagara Falls. But there's bro science and I got to consume, 50, 100 grams of BCCAs a day. But if you're eating 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, it's kind of a waste. But if you like the taste, go for it. The other big one is beginners training, individual body parts. That's like, that one has always killed me. So, and because we did this, we were pulling workouts out of Flex magazine that the pros weren't even doing, because I was on a guy's podcast who actually was the writer for Flex magazine, and he designed all of the workouts in Flex magazine and just attached bodybuilders' names to them. I was absolutely fucking destroyed, because we followed Mr. Dorian Yates, Road to the Olympic program that he wrote, and Dorian Yates never did. It wasn't until we saw Blood and Guts years later that I was like, that isn't the same program. But the idea that, that there's some magical body part split, like you train like one body part, I'm going to train quads today and you do it once every 7 days, which I think for beginners is a terrible fucking approach. If anything, we do, not necessarily body parts, because we're prioritizing lifts in bedrock, but really the idea of training a full body. I've always believed in training a full body. Now you can train push and pulls, and there's a million different ways to break it up. But, even for me personally, we've added here at Power Athlete, we've added a certain element into us lately when we're training, Victor Hugo and Shandi and these guys from Six Blades, helping them with their strength conditioning, which is cutting into our workout time. So they're coming 3 days a week from 8 to 10, which is really our workout time. So now what I've done is I've moved my training to like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I basically just put together a full body split and kind of do like intensity, volume, kind of upper and lower split on that. And it's been actually a pretty good program I've been testing. And that's been actually playing pretty good dividends, because now it allows me to, go up and train with those guys. The next day, bang weights and do a bunch of assault bike work. And then kind of every other day I'm doing something, whether it's, with those dudes or in the gym. And I really think where people make a ton of mistakes, especially in the bro science, is looking at too advanced programs, being like, hey, this bodybuilder is doing this, he's training one body part every 7 days. Well, I mean, that's a fairly advanced lifter, and trying to extrapolate what like the most advanced lifters on the planet are doing for more beginners. And I really classify most people, especially if you tell me, guys hacking bro science, he's probably in that beginner category.
Yes. And are you in person with him? Is this like a buddy from a distance? If you're in person, I say, hey, why don't we go work out on Saturday?
Yeah.
And you take him through what you're doing and show how weak his trunk is, if he's unable to do dead bugs, side billers, and like. Take him through a shadow set and just fucking hammer him.
Well, the other one, I believe that for most beginners and just most people in general, you need to use a balance of free weights and also machines. I have always done most of the primary big movers, most multi-jointed big moving exercises are always done with free weights. I do like to do accessory movements with machines, and like we have cables, and I'll do flies and a ton of shoulder accessory stuff with machines. I got a hammer incline that I really like, and we've been playing a bunch with the flywheel for leg extensions and leg curls, and so I really like those movements as accessory kind of primers or kind of finishing type movements. But always the primary movers are going to be free weight, big single joint or multi-jointed exercises. So I think what happens too with a lot of bro science, and there's research to support that when you add stability to a movement, there's a greater chance of creating more hypertrophy. But for a lot of individuals, you have to be strong enough to lift heavy enough weights to drive adaptation. So, and there's a neural component of strength that happens from lifting heavy weights. So, let's say you see a guy who's super advanced, has been training for 20 years, and he does nothing but machines. He's already done the work on the front side that's allowing him to reap the benefits. And so you looking at this individual and being like, hey, I'm going to follow this program, you're not going to get the same results. So I think that there is a maturation process, and there really is like a journey with strength training. And I think early on, if you don't prioritize the big movers and focus on the big lifts and the big multi-jointed exercises, I think you're leaving a lot of gains on the table. If you want to add some machines and some accessory movements before, after, pre-exhaust or post-exhaust, I think that there's a place for that. But, like we're, training the guys from Six Blades. We bang a lot of free weights. And the reason being is we have to challenge posture and position and teach technique and load and universal athletic position and all these things. And we can only do that while allowing their body to move through space under load. If we just stuck them in machines, would they get stronger? Sure, but it wouldn't help develop them athletically. So there is a process that we have to go. And I think if you can follow the road and follow the process, and, like in Jack Street right now, we're doing a bunch of rest pause work.
Well, we'll get to that one.
No, but I'm just saying, like in Jack Street, for example, we're doing rest pause, which is one of my favorite forms of driving hypertrophy, which is like, hey, I need you to do 6 to 10 reps heavy. You're going to put the weight up, rest 30 seconds, and you're going to give me a max rep set. It's a great way to try to push the boundaries and try to add volume and intensity. And I've used rest pauses for years. That is a fairly intermediate to advanced training program. Most individuals who are fairly new, that's not the ideal program because they don't have the physical capacity to be able to drive enough into that extra set. So for most beginners, I just have them do the initial part, rest, and give me 3 or 4 sets, because that's kind of a finisher where you've done all this kind of feeder sets, you've done all this volume on the bottom side, and that's your top intensity set. So I think being able to understand and take a very real understanding of who you are and where you are in your training process, and then finding the right program that meets your demands and your needs. And what Power Athlete's done since day one, even when it was CrossFit football, is we've paired programs with training life cycle. Where you are in your training journey, there's a proper program. Go too advanced, the results are going to be shit. Stay on the beginner for too long, and it's going to be too much bang in your head. So you have to follow the process. So for this individual, because he's following bro science, I put him back at day one, put him on bedrock, and I'd allow him to get really fucking strong. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to get lean and jacked when you're really strong than it is to try to get strong when you're already lean.
Yes. So be a good bro. And if it takes what it takes, you got to get back on the bedrock, train yourself.
Yep.
And train with him and show him where a base level of strength can take you eventually.
Yep.
All right. Good bro question. Next up, while we're on the topic of Jack Street, we spoke to what is currently happening on Jack Street. John, what is the future of Jack Street programming?
So right now we're in a little bit longer of a mesocycle or microcycle, however you want to look at it. But it's really, I usually break Jack Street up into 6-week cycles. We're actually in an 8-week cycle, and I got a 2-week acclimation phase to get people ready for the rest pause and something that I called, I think it's called transient hypertrophy, where it's just basically about driving a bunch of fluid, a bunch of pump work. So we're going to do this piece, which is going to be using rest pauses for our main lifts. We're going to hit a ton of accessory, and I'm a big fan of supersets and giant sets. So I usually try to keep the rest down 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, so I can do a ton of work in a short amount of time on the accessory stuff. But we're going to hit this 2 weeks on using rest pause. And then in the back 6 weeks, we're going to start, once they get used to the transient hypertrophy, we're going to throw a little blood flow restriction in there. So I'm getting people ready. I'm priming them so that all of a sudden, when they get done with their big movers, we'll throw it on and we'll get some blood flow restriction, which I'm real excited about using our new cuffs. We spent 2 years in production of getting the cuffs at a good price and set up the way that I wanted. And I'm really excited about these.
Yes. Shop.powerathletehq.com
Yep.
for those cuffs and preparing if you're on Field Strong as well. And
Yeah.
Grindstone.
And
you can start to see some.
Yeah. The big thing too, and I get emails on this all the time where people are trying to like time up cycles on Jack Street. Just fucking get on it. I think if you're waiting to try to jump into something, you're going to miss a ton. It's like, hey, I'm not going to show up to the party till midnight. Well, how do you know it might be the best part of the party's at 11? Just get in there. Just start. Just show up. You might be a little behind. You'll get caught up real quick. Trying to like time it up, I don't know. I don't think that's the mentality for it. Just get on the train, keep riding it, and you'll get caught up real quick. We do build upon each cycle, and weeks build upon weeks, but there's always directions in there. Like, hey, if you're brand new, take it this way. And you can always ask questions in the feed if you are new and you jump in mid-cycle.
Okay. We got an interesting question here. It can go a number of ways, but it involves the Army ACFT and Field Strong and secret squirreling programs. Are you ready, John?
I am ready. I'm ready.
I'm only doing field strong. I am maxing out all events on the ACFT test. The run. Currently sitting at 15 minutes and 20 seconds. The run, for our listeners out there, is a 2-mile run. 15 minutes and 20 seconds. How would you add extra running and cardio to get that down to a 13-minute and 30-second while still crushing it on field strong?
Well, field strong doesn't have any distance running in it. It's all basically lift heavy weights, plyometrics, and short sprints and a bunch of dynamic stuff. So to assume that you could follow field strong and then go out and crush the run is kind of a little insane. If you are going to need to do some form of running, you're going to have to at some point put in a little bit more, 400s, 800s, similar to what we do on hammer. Just because, you're rarely going to get anything over 80 to 100 yards in field strong. So as much as I would love to tell you that you could run nothing but 40s, 60s, 80s, and 100s and then go out and crush a 2-mile run, I'm not going to make that statement. I mean, can some people go out there and do it? Yes, we see it all the time. We see guys that can go out and run with max intensity and have capacity to be able to go out and run 2 miles and just get through it. But I would say if that's you, and obviously it isn't because you're not crushing the run the way you felt you should, you're going to need to put some longer distances in there. So I would take the same sprint mentality of field strong, but I would increase the distances by probably adding a 0 to things. So if it says 40, run 400. If it says 60, run 600. If it says 800, run 8, or 80, run 800. I would just add a 0 onto everything if you wanted an easy way to hack it. Or what I'd recommend is go jump into hammer. If you will not lose any capacity, because hammer puts a ton of emphasis on strength, capacity, and movement. Not as much plyometrics. You're not going to get any Olympic lifting, but you're going to get a ton of dynamic pulling and a fair decent amount of plyos on hammer. I
want to scratch
so
my face
weird.
So bad.
I would recommend, if really you're struggling to max out the run, move over to hammer and see how you do. I don't think you'll lose much on field strong. But the problem is, as much as I love all the programs, field strong always holds such a dear place in my heart because it's so much of what the training I really enjoy. Challenging and fostering athleticism, dynamic movement, plyometrics, being dynamic, compensatory acceleration, even though we use that in all programs. But that stuff and what we program on field strong is some of my favorite programming. I mean, it's what we use with our professional athletes. If guys come in, they will always follow some version, but it's going to be a field strong based upon their adaptation, where they are into this. And I mean, like the new guys come in, we got to do some acclimatization training to get them up to where we want, throw a little, metabolic conditioning cycle in, get their conditioning through the roof and prepare them for more advanced training, which is really where I get excited.
Yeah. And if you like the style, just try the adding zeros technique. And then Saturdays, there's options. This is your SPP. You're training for this wonderful, accurate testing of abilities that is known as the ACFT.
Well, I mean, the new ACFT has what it's. They've changed it now.
Oh yeah, they made it easier.
Yeah, they made it easier. My recommendation when they were going through it is just throw in pull-ups. You remember they had to get rid of the knee tuck hang and this. And I remember when I gave the talk at NDU, we could solve all these problems. You wouldn't have to buy any fucking trap bars. You wouldn't have to waste any money. You wouldn't have to change anything. Just put pull-ups into the training into the test, and we will fix all these problems. And they were like, "Why?" And this guy, "Why is that?" Like, because you can't do a fucking pull-ups with a fat ass. That's why you don't see fat Marines.
Is there research on that?
Yeah. Yes, there is. I saw a really funny one got forwarded me yesterday. Did you see that Matt Gertz? Who's that?
Gertz is a great name.
No, there was a congressman. They were asking him about.
There's a congressman named Gertz.
I think that's what his name is. I'll fuck it up. I'm not gonna tell the story.
Yeah, I had a buddy in college, Gertz. It's great.
Well, we had Jason Gertz.
I don't even know his first name.
Jason Gertz trained at the gym with us. He was the guy that he and Nate got into it, and Nate fucking blew out his ankle. Gertz fucking laid him out. Gertz was like, I think he was a college wrestler, and Nate thought he was going to take him down, and fucking Gertz slammed him and fucked Nate's ankle up. That's when Nate was in a boot. I don't know if you remember this.
No. I mean, we tackled all the solid questions and provided some good directions here. Favorite Halloween candy, John? I know you're not a big sweets guy.
Not a huge sweets guy.
But if you had to go to, because the price of candy is risen a ridiculous amount, but just saying, if you had one go-to candy bar,
if I had one, I'm a Snicker bar guy. I like Snicker bars.
it's classic.
Yeah,
It's good.
I'm not a real big
They nailed that one.
candy dude, but I do like a Snicker bar.
Yeah,
So like the little baby Snickers, I'll eat.
yeah. I got to go Baby Ruth, Goonies. Baby Ruth's great. Got to avoid those at all costs, though.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Well, asked and answered. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Power at the Radio. Unless you got anything else.
Well, just the beautiful hotline opportunity we have to connect with us and answer some questions. Because, I mean, it's always hot.
Yeah, if you want to jump
Even
in
if it gets cold this winter, hotline.
Yeah, if you want to jump in on the hotline, 929-464-464. 929-ing-ing.
0.
Easy to find.
And that does it for our Halloween special. This is getting released right before Halloween. So, yeah, be safe. All that jazz. I don't know. Don't be weird. I guess have some candy.
Yep. And look out for fentanyl candy. I keep seeing all this fentanyl stuff. So for my kids, I'm going to allow them to go get candy, but I'll give them candy when they get home. I'm just going to pitch their candy.
Yeah.
So I let them go out and trick or treat, and then I grab it all, and then I trade them for decent candy that I know is legit.
Full candy bars?
Yeah.
Full candy bars for the kids?
I'll give them like 2 or 3 fulls if they give me all the little ones, or I'll let them just kind of pick it out. But man, at this day and age, like, one, I don't want to eat that much shit and that much junk. I mean, like, have you ever looked like, even though I know Sour Patch Kids and sour gummies and some of those stuffs are delicious, but if you look at the ingredients, it's not what I want. So I usually try to get them some decent chocolate and I'll let them get them some C's candy. And I'll be like, I'll trade you your garbage candy for the C's candy. And then at least I know.
C's candy, that's a California special.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm from California, so C's candy, they have one up in Round Rock that I'll go up to. And I try to get them that for holidays and different things. So that's how we roll.
Yes. And we did, this is way throwback, John, episode 79 with Matt Lalonde, where we basically forced him at gunpoint during that Halloween episode to give us the most nutritional, or I guess the best Halloween candy option, which then, I mean, he was very reluctant, but after we forced his hand, he went with peanut M&Ms.
I do like a peanut M&M.
As the least unhealthy option for a Halloween candy.
Cool.
All right. Well, that does it for another episode of Power Athlete Radio. Bye.
Bye.